After an otherworldly force decimates the human race, a determined high schooler goes on a mission to rescue her younger brother. Armed with a rifle, Cassie Sullivan emerges from the forest to loot an abandoned gas station across the road. Upon entering, she hears a voice calling out for help and investigates. Inside a back room, Cassie finds a man pointing a gun at her, and they each command the other to put down their weapon. However, the man hesitates to remove his other hand from his jacket, and when Cassie sees a metallic glint, she shoots him. Months ago, Cassie attended a house party with her friend Liz. The latter was supposed to set her up with a friend, but since he was a no-show, Cassie decided to leave. Outside, she ran into Ben Parrish and clumsily joked about his pink cell phone case. She was saved from the embarrassing exchange when someone called him, and Cassie headed home. She tucked her younger brother Sam into bed and sang him to sleep. The next day, Cassie saw Ben on the football field. Liz tried to show her a strange video she saw online, but the coach called them off the field. Cassie then saw everyone huddling over their phones, bewildered. Later, Cassie and her family learned that an enormous spaceship piloted by the others had entered Earth's atmosphere. For the first 10 days, no activity was recorded from the otherworldly. Soon, their neighbors started leaving town, but Cassie and her family were among the few who stayed. At school, they experienced a sudden power outage, and all electronics shut off simultaneously. Cassie and her classmates rushed to the window, horrified to see cars and planes crashing. At the student hall, officials announced that the others had unleashed the first wave, an electromagnetic pulse that killed all electrical power and communications worldwide. This also shut off all engines and running water. Afterward, the students left for home, and this was the last time Cassie saw Ben. Days later, as Cassie and Sam gathered water from the lake, a powerful earthquake struck, which caused a tsunami. The two immediately sought safety atop a tree and waited it out. Later, they learned the extraterrestrials had unleashed the second wave, mega tsunamis destroying entire coastal cities and islands, killing millions. Soon, the others modified a deadlier strain of the avian flu for the third wave, and it spread quickly across the planet. Days later, Cassie went to a makeshift quarantine center to visit Liz. However, her mother Lisa, a nurse, spotted Cassie and reprimanded her for entering the unsafe zone. After placing a mask on her, Lisa ordered an officer to escort Cassie out. Soon, most of those afflicted succumbed to the disease and died, including Lisa. Days later, Cassie's father Oliver surmised that the others needed the Earth to inhabit and were using the waves to kill humanity. The family then evacuated their house and headed toward a refugee camp. One night in the facility, Oliver led Cassie away to hand her a loaded gun and instructed her to only use it for life or death situations. Her father warned her that nowhere was safe, much to Cassie's dismay. Eventually, an army unit with working vehicles visited their camp, where Colonel Vosh announced they had come to help. Afterward, the adults were directed to the mess hall for a briefing while the children were escorted to the buses. Oliver attempted to get on the bus with his children, but a soldier stopped him. Vosh arrived and explained to Oliver that they must transport the children to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base first and pick up the adults after. Oliver trusted Vosh and loaded a protesting Cassie and Sam onto the bus. However, Sam forgot his stuffed toy Bear, so Cassie returned to retrieve it and swore she'd return quickly. After she grabbed Bear, Cassie heard the bus starting and immediately ran back but got left behind. At the mess hall, Vosh announced that the fourth wave had already begun and that the others had come down to Earth. He informed them of their ability to inhabit and control human hosts, and the military suspects they'd made their way to the camp. Vosh claimed that because of the adults' complicated screening procedure, they'd be moved to a different facility. Cassie heard the commotion and attempted to enter the mess hall, but Oliver, who spotted her, signaled her not to. Meanwhile, the irate adults tried to leave, with one man threatening to shoot the soldiers. A shot was fired, and chaos ensued while a horrified Cassie watched. Oliver ordered his daughter to flee, so she quickly hid in the woods. After the unit left, Cassie returned to the mess hall and discovered that all the adults, including Oliver, had been massacred. Before departing, Cassie grabbed a rifle and tearfully apologized to her father. In the forest, Cassie mourned for Oliver. Later that night, the children were brought to the base. Ben, who also survived, was called and escorted inside. Ben informed Sergeant Resnick that he was the only one in his family who survived since his sister died during the second wave while the virus killed his parents. As Resnick examined him, she saw Ben wearing his sister's pendant and told him he could help avenge her. Afterward, Resnick implanted a tracker into his neck and claimed it was necessary because the army couldn't afford to lose them, as they needed every child to help fight against the others. When she sensed Ben's skepticism, Resnick opened a window, revealing a strapped-down kid. She handed him an instrument that let him see the alien that had infected the lad's brain. Resnick explained that the others took over their host's mind and bodies, and that the only way to kill them was to kill the host. She then ordered Ben to push the button to end the kid's life, which the latter followed. Days later, Cassie wrote a journal entry on how the others took over the planet by killing the weak ones using the 3 waves. However, because of the few remaining survivors, the aliens had come down to exterminate them personally by possessing the consciousness of humans. Hence, no one could be trusted. Cassie spent her days concealed in the forest, hiding whenever she saw other people. One day, Cassie spotted an abandoned gas station and shot the man inside, realizing too late that he was only reaching for his crucifix. In the present, Cassie mourns for her loss of humanity. The following day, Cassie makes her way toward the highway and sees recently deceased bodies when she's suddenly shot in the leg. She quickly hides underneath a truck, where she reels from the pain. Cassie then rolls herself out and tries to flee, but she trips and passes out. At the base, Vosh gives an inspiring speech to the kids to prepare them for the 5th wave. In the next few days, the young soldiers undergo military training. A week later, Cassie wakes and finds herself in a room with an IV line on her arm. A man suddenly enters, and she feigns sleep as he checks on her. The following day, Cassie removes the IV and tries to search for her gun but falls due to the pain. This alerts her captor, so Cassie quickly returns to bed and pretends to sleep. However, the man knows she's awake and calls out her name. Cassie angrily asks how he knows her name, so the man claims he saw her driver's license and introduces himself as Evan Walker. He explains that he brought her back to his house because Cassie was bleeding. When she demands for her gun, Evan says there wasn't one when he found her, then notices her bandages bleeding. Evan then carries her to the bathroom and tends to her wound. Later in the kitchen, Cassie explains that she's searching for the military base to find her brother. Evan admits that he rescued her due to his guilt of being unable to save his family, and Cassie ponders his statement momentarily. At the base, Ben's squad gets a new teammate named Ringer, a recruit who got kicked out of her last group due to disciplinary issues. Ringer walks up to Ben and clarifies she won't follow his orders. One squad member invites her to join their salacious poker game, so she punches him, declaring she doesn't want to hear any demeaning remarks from the others before leaving. At the farmhouse, Cassie sees Evan chopping wood outside, so she decides to snoop around his room. As she's about to leave, she steps on a loose wood panel on the floor and pries it open. Cassie is shocked to find her gun inside, so she quickly goes back to her room to pack her things before fleeing. However, she stumbles on a tripwire, alerting Evan. He overwhelms and drags her behind a tree to keep her quiet as an alien drone passes. A man then appears to check the area, and the pair remain silent until he leaves. Afterward, the pair return to the house, where Cassie confronts Evan about her gun, but he explains that he thought she was an other. Evan reveals that the man they saw earlier was an other and that the drones were used for hunting down survivors. Even though he believes Sam might be dead because the military bases are the other's targets, Cassie is adamant that her brother is still alive. She returns to her room, but Evan follows and says he'll accompany her. Cassie vehemently refuses, claiming she'll shoot him. So Evan remarks about her killing the man in the gas station. Horrified that he read her journal, Cassie slaps him. However, Evan is unfazed and is determined to help her get to the base. Elsewhere, Ringer continues to belittle Ben, claiming that the squad is doomed under his leadership. Before they spar, Ben asks her to teach his squad how to shoot if he wins, and he'll stop bothering her if he loses. Ringer agrees and they fight, where Ben wins after submitting her on the ground. Cassie and Evan head into the woods, where the former asks him to teach her how to disarm a person with a gun. Evan refuses, but Cassie argues she has to be ready because she promised her brother that she'd always protect him. Moved by her story, he patiently teaches her the technique. At the facility, Ringer trains the squad in the shooting range. Resnick appears and tells Ben that Vosh called for him. He he goes to the command center, where the colonel informs him that the fifth wave has started. He hands him a helmet with a built-in lens that can differentiate between a human and an other. Vosh explains that Ben's group and 3 other squads will test the optics in battle tomorrow and wishes them luck on the mission. The following morning, Cassie wakes to find Evan bathing in the lake and stares at him until he notices her. Embarrassed, Cassie walks back to the tent. Minutes later, Evan returns and sees Cassie looking at her old photos of Liz and her family. Cassie reminisces about them when Evan says he's excited to meet Sam, eliciting a smile from the woman. They then take down the tent when Evan shields Cassie's head from bumping against the tree trunk, and they share a moment. Later, as the pair continue their journey, they discuss their initial impressions of each other. Soon they spot an abandoned car and make camp for the night. At the barracks, Ben comforts a scared Sam, who's apparently part of a squad. The younger one shares that his sister used to sing him to sleep, so the two sing a song, which irritates Dumbo, telling them to quiet down. Meanwhile, after Evan tends to Cassie's wound, they share a tender kiss. Later, Ben's squad, Squad 53, makes their way to the helicopter. Ben explains to Ringer that Sam got food poisoning, but in truth, he chained the younger kid in the bathroom and left him his locket to spare him from the mission. Squad 53 is soon dropped at the designated location, where they spot alien-possessed humans. A shootout soon occurs. Overwhelmed, they run to the bus for cover, but Oompa is shot through the window while searching for Teacup. Ringer says they can't stay inside the bus for long and tells Ben she'll distract them so the others can escape to the alleyway. She then goes outside and drops a grenade in the fuel tank, causing the bus to explode. The squad enters an abandoned building, with Ringer arriving moments later. Brushing off their praises, she finds the mission questionable because she doesn't believe the others would be afraid of children. With that, she decides to quit. She removes her implant and suddenly registers as an other on their scopes. Horrified, they point their guns at her. So Ben also cuts out his implant and also registers as an other. The squad panics and aims their weapons at him, but he tells them that Vosh lied to them. Ben deduces that the army officials are the real others, and that they manipulated the impressionable children with the fake devices into killing the human survivors, making them the fifth wave. Ben orders them to remove their trackers and go AWOL, but he realizes that he left Sam behind. Ben decides to go back for him and instructs them to put his implant back. He also orders his squad to shoot him so his return to the base isn't suspicious. Later that night, Evan awakens when he hears something in the forest. He investigates and encounters a man who tells him he's out of his drone sector and shoots him. A fight breaks out and Evan is knocked down. Cassie grabs her gun and tries to flee while Evan fights off his attacker and kills him. He then attacks the remaining assailants and subdues them with ease. Seeing this, Cassie realizes something is off. After the brawl, she points her gun at Evan and tearfully asks what he is. Evan reveals that he's an other that was sent to Earth years ago as a sleeper agent. Back then, he believed love was a trick. However, he fell in love the first time he saw her, and that part of his humanity returned because of it. Evan admits that he killed the sniper that shot her to save her life. Cassie refuses to believe Evan when he reveals that the others actually control the army and are preparing the children to exterminate the rest of humanity. Still, she leaves, threatening to shoot him if he follows her. Later, Ben is escorted back to the base and lies that his entire squad was killed in action. Meanwhile, Cassie spots a bus and pretends to fall in front of it. The vehicle stops and a soldier leads her inside. Cassie is escorted to the base where Resnick tries to make her undergo the initial process. However, Cassie uses a cord to choke the older woman. The sergeant attempts to shake her off by pushing her against the wall, but Cassie shoves Resnick against the glass and kills her. Cassie removes her implant and uses Resnick's clothes to go unnoticed. At the control center, Ben tries to explain to Vosh how he survived, but the latter notices his lie. With no choice, Ben admits he knows that they're others, and Vosh explains that they just want to occupy Earth. Just then, a soldier arrives to report that they found Resnick's lifeless body. An explosion suddenly goes off within the base, so Vosh orders his men to move the recruits to Wonderland. Ben is taken away but knocks out the soldier escorting him. He then removes his implant and flees. Moments later, Cassie runs into Ben and quickly disarms him. Ben reveals the truth about the army, and they continue their search for Sam. However, they run into a pair of soldiers who order them to stand down. Luckily, Evan appears and subdues them. He explains that he was the mastermind behind the bombs and wants to bring the base down. He then apologizes to a shocked Cassie and kisses her. Evan then tells him to flee and goes on his way, but the pair continue their search for Sam. The duo stumble onto the rest of the recruits being escorted off base. Cassie spots Sam from the crowd, and the siblings are reunited. The trio then escapes through a side door where Cassie hands Sam his stuffed bear. Ben then tells Cassie he'll remove Sam's implant so they won't be tracked. Meanwhile, Vosh orders his men to evacuate. The trio make it outside, where they spot Vosh boarding a helicopter. The colonel sees them and orders his military plane to shoot, but the trio manages to hide behind a truck. A massive explosion occurs, completely destroying the base and causing the ground to crack. Fortunately, Ringer arrives with a truck and saves them in the nick of time. However, the despondent Cassie realizes they left Evan behind. Soon, Ben and his squad enjoy a peaceful meal when he spots Cassie by herself looking at the sky. When he approaches, Cassie expresses her wish to save the rest of the recruits. She then concludes that hope drives humanity's survival, believing it to be their greatest strength.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.